Welcome to Visual Basic. This is going to be just the basics of getting a program started, naming conventions, remarks within code, my expectations for you for each of the assignments, but including really just getting the program started right's a bigger deal than a lot of people think. So once we're opened into Visual Studio, as we are, we're going to go to File. And we're either going to open one that we've already existed, which is a different topic, or we're going to create a new project. And when we create a new project, oftentimes Visual C# is selected, but that's the default. But we want to go into Visual Basic, and within Visual Basic, and that's critical, within Visual Basic, we want Windows Forms, although some of these others might be things that we want to experiment around with at some point. Now, you will lose your entire project if you're taking this course if you do not direct it to your iDrive to appropriate place. So our first project we're going to create, our first program, is going to be book assignment 1.2. So I'm just going to call this 1.2. Notice that name changes the solution name. That's fine. We'll stay with that. And then you're going to browse until you find within your iDrive, and I've got a lot of stuff here, you're going to browse to the appropriate folder, and I don't have that folder structure set up, but you're going to browse and select it. For the case of what I'm doing right now, I'm just going to put this in my secondary folder, but I'm just going to place it on that level and select that folder. Okay, but you need to have that go into the correct folder. So then we're ready. We click OK. And it's creating our project for us. Hopefully it's saving it into the right spot, opening. Now, good habits to get into. Oftentimes the toolbox is not pinned, so opening up the toolbox and pinning that is good. And the next thing we would like to do is our form is always going to include the text. I'm going to alphabetize my form properties over here. The next thing we're going to do is go to the text of our form property, and we're going to put in the assignment name, in this case 1.2, and include your name in that. I'll do it this way. And that will be my name for now. So that way when I or a helper or a fellow student are walking around, they're looking over your shoulder, we're working in projects, they can know your name. I can learn your name. I just see the back of your heads the whole semester. It really helps for me to be able to see your face, to associate names, so it is very helpful for me there. Then, when we go into code, and I'm going to go into code just by double-clicking this form. When I double-click the form, I create this form load. A real quick view on what that does. If I was to put a message box there and just put in message box and just put in greetings, I'll show you what that does for us. When I run this form, or when I run this program, I should say, and of course not responding, there's what happened. It's kind of like the form was a button. It's kind of like I clicked on the form. We will use that at some time, but we're not going to use it now, so I'm just going to delete that sub. But we always have to have public class and end class in there. Now, the habit you want to get into when you come in here, though, is you're going to create 3 remarks. That's things that follow the apostrophe, and those are going to be your name, the date you started this project on, and the name of the project. Then after that, we're ready to start our project. This first project is something about creating a greeting. So I'm not reading from the book right now, but I want to talk about other good habits to get into. So we're going to have a label that's going to display a greeting in it. So I'm going to put a label on here, And here is maybe the biggest habit I want you to get into. When it goes on there, that label is named label 1. I want label 1 to be part of the name, but in front of that I'm going to put something appropriate to the project. So I'm going to call this greeting label. Each new word, there's no spacing, and each new word should be capitalized. If it was morning greeting label, I would have the M in morning capitalized, no spaces in there. For right now, I'm going to just going to change the text of that label to be, not any real reason, ... I just want to be able to see where it's at for right now. So I click that, there's my label. And then I'm going to create a button. I put the button on there, and the habit you need to get into is to go ahead and name that button right now. I'm going to show you why. Let's say I want to assign code to it. And I assign code, and it creates this, and I'll just put a comment here. Code goes here. And then I name it again. Let's go back and say, oh, I forgot to name this. I forgot to give it appropriate name, and I'm going to, let's see, let's change the text to click here for a greeting. And let's go ahead and change the name of it, because I should have named it greeting label. What was I thinking? That's what it's for, or greeting button, excuse me. Greeting button. And now I go back into the code associated with this, double click it, and you see it still says it's called button 1, and later on it says greeting button 1. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to go back here, I'm going to get rid of this. And now I'm going to put a button on here, and I'm going to immediately name it. That's the habit we're looking for, greeting button. And now when I double click it, it's greeting button. And that way, if I have 50 buttons on here, I don't have to read over to the end of the line and see which one, what other names it's handling. I just want it to be right here. So we're going to create that habit. Good naming conventions, really important. So I have this label. I already named it, I believe I named it greeting label. That's good. So if I'm going to just wrap up this part of the project, I could say greeting. Notice highlights greeting button 1, but I can just click down to here, cursor down, and hit tab. It takes me to right there. Dot text equals hello world. Now, a lot of programmers will prescribe, not a lot, but some programmers will prescribe by every single line of code should have a remark, and you could do that this way. Just put the apostrophe here and say, this greets us, or something appropriate to what each line does. I don't go overboard on that with every single line, but let's say my greeting button actually did 3 different tasks, and it took 10 lines for each task. After each 10 lines, I might say, hey, here's what's about to happen as a remark. The book will show you this as we're moving on. This, for whatever reason, got bumped down. You can always, I'm going to Control X, click next to Form 1, enter, Control V, and you can put it up top. I'm not certain why that happens, but it happens from time to time. It just gets bumped down when new commands are put in there. Okay, and then the last thing I'd like to show you is typically, if we save this as an executable program, which we may do later in the year with some, you don't see the blue outline, and you don't have this X button or this minimize or maximize. You don't have these, so it's good, considered good form to have an exit button on there. So I just copied and pasted, by the way. I'm going to delete that, do it again. So I just selected this, Control C, click off of there, Control V. I wanted another button, so I'm just going to call this exit button because I practice good naming conventions, and I'm going to give it text of exit, and when I double click it, here's where I put the code that fires for it. Maybe I'm going to put a remark after this, but all you have to put is end, and if I was going to put a remark, I might put will exit the program. You do not have to do that for every line. I'm just trying to emphasize it's in green, it's a remark, we're going to use them. So now if I run this program, I can click my button here, and yes, I can exit the program up there, but that's not always available to us. So now I can exit the program there. Okay, good habits to get into. We're going to start the program right. We're going to be in Visual Basic. We're going to point things to our folder as we're creating the program before we hit OK. We're going to place our name with the homework assignment that we're doing on the text of our form. We're going to have 3 comments: our name, the date we start this project, and what the project name is. We're going to have those remarks at the top underneath form, and we're going to have exit buttons on, as well as everything else we talked about with our good naming convention. So hope it's a very successful semester for you and should be a really good time, but we're going to create those habits. Good luck.